Hare Krishna. So we're continuing our discussion from the 9th chapter of 3rd canto, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. So I'll read the translation for today's text again. So this is recited by Brahma as a prayer onto the lotus feet of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Translation again. But the pious activities of the people, such as performance of Vedic rituals, charity, austere penances, and transcendental service performed with a view to worship you and satisfy you by offering you the fruitive results are also beneficial. Such acts of religion never go in vain. So in the previous verse or two, Brahma was, or in the yesterday's verse, text 12, Brahma was talking about the non-devotees, those who worship the demigods and those who are atheists or don't worship the Supreme Lord, what's their position, how Krishna relates with them. And the verse previous to that, Brahma was talking about the devotees of the Lord, how they're worshipping Krishna, how they're seeing Krishna, perceiving Krishna through the years. By hearing about Krishna from the Shastras, they're seeing Krishna, taking darshan of him, and they're always thinking of him and rendering service. In today's verse, he's talking about those who aren't non-devotees, but also they're not pure devotees, they're like somewhere in the middle. And what's their position? Brahma is saying that there are persons out there who, okay, they might not be sold out full-on pure devotees of the Lord, but still they have some inclination to either do some Vedic rituals, some karma kanda sacrifices, or they might have some inclination to do charity or some austere penances, or engage in some kind of Vedic sacrifice. And if they just simply dovetail each and every one of these things for the pleasure of Krishna, then these acts never go in vain, and these acts of charity or ritual, sacrifice or austerity, because it's done in connection with Krishna, will help one slowly elevate himself to pure bhakti. And that's what Prabhupada is also discussing in the purport of today's verse. And this is something that Krishna himself, he discusses in the, if you remember the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he talks about the different stages of bhakti. Krishna says, okay, topmost level is, okay, you do pure bhakti, like Raganuga bhakti, spontaneous devotional service. For the Raganuga devotee, he's spontaneously 24 hours a day, he's just in complete samadhi. He's always thinking about Krishna, planning how to serve him, so on and so forth. Okay, if you can't be like that, spontaneously thinking about me, just fully absorbed in thoughts of me, then Krishna says, in the next verse of 12th chapter, then you just simply follow the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi bhakti. Prabhupada explains in the purport. Then if you can't do that, if you can't follow all the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, then that's okay. Whatever you're doing in your life, just simply offer the results of that to me. So engage in karma yoga. And that's what today's verse is talking about. Brahma is saying, okay, there's persons out there who have some inclination to do some Vedic rituals, some sacrifices, or charity, or austere penances. All these persons have to do is just simply dovetail the sacrifice they're doing, or the charity they're doing, the penance they're doing, for Krishna's pleasure. Just put Krishna into the equation, and that will come as a permanent spiritual asset for them, and that will help one rise slowly up to the platform of pure bhakti. And in that 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes one step forward, more than this. Krishna says, okay, even if you can't do a sacrifice for me, or even if you can't give charity for me, or engage in work for me, no problem. If you can't do that also, then sacrifice the results of your work, give charity. You don't have to give to me, but give at least to someone. So in this way, Krishna, he is so magnanimous and he's so open, and he's making the process so easy. He's saying, even if you can't, okay, donate to me, do a sacrifice for me, engage in austerities for me, glorify me, so on and so forth, no problem. Still, just whatever money you have, whatever possessions you have, give some of that in charity to others. It doesn't have to be for me. You can just give it to anyone and everyone, whoever you like. And how does that help? How does that help one rise to the platform of bhakti? It's very simple. Like when someone is has that charitable mood of giving in charity, and then naturally one day by chance or by Krishna's arrangement, one day he'll end up giving charity to a devotee. So someone's very charitable nature, he'll be walking down the street and somehow he meets, let's say for example, a book distributor from Hare Krishna or ISKCON, and because he's very charitable in nature, he thinks, oh, this is a nice man, he's a monk, he feels some compassion, oh, this monk is just, given up his life and he's serving in the temple, he seems like a nice guy, okay, I'll give you $10. Okay, I'm not so much interested in this book, but you seem like a nice guy, I have a lot of money, I'll give you $10, I'll give you $20, so on and so forth. So because of that charitable inclination, unknowingly, the soul or the jiva, he ends up doing devotional service. So this man who's giving the Lakshmi for the book distributor, he's not giving the Lakshmi thinking of Krishna, okay, he's from Hare Krishna, I need to give this money to Krishna, so I'll benefit. He's not thinking like that. He's just charitable by nature, and he gives charity to this organization, to that organization, he gives charity to beggar on the street. In the same way, he ends up giving charity to the book distributor on Sankirtan. But what he doesn't realize, by giving charity to the Sankirtan devotee, he has accumulated ajnata sukriti, he has accumulated unknown, he has performed unknown devotional service. And that, as Prabhupada is explaining in today's purport, anything done on account for the Lord is a permanent asset and accumulates in the form of unseen piety for gradual promotion to the platform of unalloyed devotional service of Lord. So even though this person who's given Lakshmi in charity, he has no knowledge about Krishna, he's not giving charity with the mindset, okay, this is going to Krishna, I want to help the temple, nothing like that. He's just randomly just giving charity to a Sankirtan devotee. But still, that Krishna takes account of that, writes that down, and Prabhupada's writing in today's purport, that becomes his permanent asset, and it will accumulate in the future. Because of that small little devotional service is done, Krishna will arrange that he again meets up with devotees, or again somehow or other comes in contact with another devotee of the Lord, and like this, his journey on the path of bhakti has begun. And Prabhupada is explaining slowly, these unseen pious activities, unseen devotional service, akyata sukriti, will slowly pile up. And until one day, that jiva will come to the platform of unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. So in this way, Krishna has so nicely arranged everything in this material universe to elevate all the fallen conditioned souls to some or other come to the platform of pure bhakti. So this is how Krishna has designed this environment, this material world. So Prabhupada explains, there's two functions for this material world. One is that, okay, these jivas, they have this desire to be like Krishna, to enjoy separate from Krishna. So then Krishna, he creates a whole virtual reality where they can fulfill that desire. But at the same time, Krishna understands, constitutionally, they don't have, by nature, they can't enjoy like that. By nature, they can't be happy doing like that. So then Krishna, he arranges things in this universe by which one can slowly rectify his consciousness and come back to his constitutional position of being an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. So it's so nice how Krishna, he makes the process of bhakti so open. And we see that with 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, okay, best is if you're always absorbed in thoughts of me, in samadhi. Okay, if you can't do that, follow the rules and regulations of bhakti. Sadhana bhakti, if you can't do that, no problem. Give something in charity to me, work for me, do something in relation to me. Okay, you can't do that, no problem. You don't have to give to me, just give to someone else. It can be anyone and everyone. Give charity to someone else. And by that, one develops this charitable mood. One will somehow or other accidentally end up one day giving charity to a devotee. And by that one will get ajnata sukriti, and by that one will slowly, Prabhupada explains, come to the platform of bhakti to pure bhakti in the future. So in this way, Krishna, we can understand how magnanimous and how open and accessible Krishna has made himself, or made the process of bhakti for all of us. And Mahaprabhu, he is, again, when he came 500 years ago, he made it even more, the process of bhakti even more easy. So in today's verse, Brahma is saying a couple of different, first he is saying Vedic rituals, then secondly he is saying charity, thirdly he is saying austere penances or austerities, and lastly he is saying transcendental service or worship of the Lord. So these four things, if they're done somehow or other in relation to Krishna, Brahma is saying, they will slowly help one bring bring one to the platform of pure bhakti. So these acts of religion never go in vain, Brahma is explaining. In regard to the first one, Vedic rituals, in 4th canto actually, Prabhupada, he writes in one purport that in terms of the different stages of practice one can do, there's Kama Kanda at the bottom, then there is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga, then we have Bhakti Yoga. So Kama Kanda is right at the bottom. And technically, Kama Kanda, there's no yoga given for, the word yoga is not attached to Kama Kanda. So yoga means to connect with who? Krishna. So in Karma Yoga, one directly connects with Krishna by one's karma activities. Jnana Yoga, by studying, acquiring knowledge, one connects with Krishna. Astanga Yoga, by the eightfold process, one connects with Krishna. Bhakti Yoga, through love and devotion, one connects with Krishna. But for Kama Kanda, it's not given Karma Kanda Yoga, because one is not directly connected with Krishna. But even though for Karma Kanda, we don't say Karma Kanda Yoga, Prabhupada, in one purport, in 4th canto, he explains, quoting Vishnavacharya Thakur, that actually, even though Karma Kanda is technically not considered as a yoga system, actually even in Karma Kanda, there is a hint of devotional service, there is a tinge of bhakti. And because of that, anyone who engages in Karma Kanda, if they follow the process properly, they will slowly be elevated to the higher levels of yoga. How is Karma Kanda have a little connection with bhakti? How does Karma Kanda have a tinge of bhakti? Prabhupada explains, quoting Vishnavacharya Thakur, that in any Karma Kanda ritual or sacrifice or yagna, it could be a Karma Kanda sacrifice to Indra, Ganesh, Surya, Durga, Brahma, so on and so forth. It could be as Karma Kanda sacrifice to any demigod. It could be for the purpose of any kind of material gain. It could be for the purpose of going to the heavenly planets, for the purpose of getting material wealth, opulence, so on and so forth. Prabhupada explains, quoting Vishnavacharya Thakur, that any Karma Kanda sacrifice, Vishnu is given the central position. No matter whatever Karma Kanda sacrifice is going on, there will always be some mantras where Vishnu's name is chanted, and the very fire sacrifice which is going on, that fire is considered as the mouth of Vishnu. So in this way, Prabhupada explains that even in Karma Kanda, whatever Karma Kanda sacrifice people do with completely selfish motive, with completely 100% motive of just for personal gain, personal sense gratification, any Karma Kanda sacrifice, Vishnu is always given the central position, and mantras will be chanted in worship of Vishnu in any Karma Kanda sacrifice. And because of that, Prabhupada explains, there is a tinge of devotional service, there is a tinge of bhakti in Karma Kanda, and Krishna, he takes notice of that and he gives these Karma Kanda persons some credit. He gives them some agyanta sukriti for doing this sacrifice. So in this way, Prabhupada explains, even in Karma Kanda, there is a little trace of devotional service, there is trace of bhakti, and that's why all these persons engaged in demigod worship or Karma Kanda, if they follow it properly, slowly, over a period of time, over many lifetimes, they will come to a platform of bhakti, they will slowly rise up. So in this way, Prabhupada, he gives the example of this Karma Kanda cycle, how that helps one raise to a platform of bhakti. And the main thing Prabhupada is explaining, that whatever inclination we have, like in Prabhupada is quoting the verse from Bhagavad Gita 9.27, where Krishna is saying, Yat karosi yad asnasi yad juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tat kurusva madarpanam. That whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever sacrifices you do, whatever penances you do, whatever work you do, you just simply do as an offering to me. And that's what basically the whole theme of today's verse and purport is. Prabhupada is saying, whatever you're doing, just simply connect that with Krishna. Do it as an offering to Krishna. And in terms of this item of Vedic rituals, sacrifices, people, Prabhupada is explaining in today's purport that in devotional service, Prabhupada is saying there's 9 different forms: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, praying. But Prabhupada is saying these 9 forms of bhakti, they don't appeal to everyone. And people they have, Prabhupada is explaining, these things, they don't appeal to people with a pompous nature, who are by nature attracted by Vedic superficial rituals and other costly performances of social religious shows. So some people, they have a lot of money, wealth, material possessions. So they like to, rather than doing simple things like attending a Bhagavatam class, picking up beads and just chanting Hare Krishna in some corner, setting up an altar, doing some puja, rather, these things are too simple for them. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of wealth, and they want to do something big, As Prabhupada is saying, there's a lot of people out there with a pompous nature, and they like to do some big yagna, big fire sacrifice, conduct some big festival and give in charity. And this way, their false ego, their Ishwar Bhava, it feels good. I did this big sacrifice, I gave so much money in charity, this many people were invited, this many brahmanas I fed. In this way, they feel a certain sense of achievement, Prabhupada's explaining. So that's why they don't take to the simple process of devotion. In devotion, what is it? The Shavanam, Kirtanam. These things are too simple for these persons with so much wealth and money, For their false ego, for their Ishwar Bhava, they want to do something very big, like a big sacrifice, a yagna, and so on and so forth. So therefore, Prabhupada is explaining, they don't take to the simple process of devotional service, they rather do some yagna or fire sacrifice. But nevertheless, because in these fire sacrifice, yagnas or rituals, Vishnu is given a central position, they get elevated. And Prabhupada is explaining, whatever tendency we have, nature we have, we might have a lot of wealth and money, and we want to give in charity or do some big festival, just dovetail it for Krishna's pleasure. Just like one story that comes to mind in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's the story of one devotee of Mahaprabhu named Buddhimanta Khan. And this Buddhimanta Khan, he was again a very, very, very rich personality in Navadvip. And when it was announced that for Mahaprabhu's second marriage to Vishnupriya, this Buddhimanta Khan, he came and offered that I will sponsor the whole marriage ceremony of Nimai Pandit and Vishnupriya Devi. And don't worry about the Lakshmi, don't worry about arrangements, I will do everything. I will sponsor the whole marriage, and this marriage will be so big, this marriage will be so amazing that no one in the history of Navadvip would have ever seen a marriage so great, as so amazing as this marriage of Nimai Pandit. So in the same way, from this example we see that, Buddhimanta Khan, he has a lot of money, he has a lot of wealth, but he's dovetailing all of that for the pleasure of Krishna. So in the same way, there might be devotees out there who have a lot of money, material wealth, opulences, following in the footsteps of Buddhimanta Khan, they can dovetail that for Krishna's pleasure. Just like Buddhimanta Khan, he's thinking, okay, there's going to be a marriage of Nimai Pandit, let me sponsor that, let me arrange all the facilities, let me arrange for hold the marriage ceremony, and this way bring pleasure to the Supreme Lord. And it's given that in the Adivas, which is like the day or like the festival, preceding the actual marriage ceremony, Nimai Pandit, he invited, so many different guests were invited from Navadvip, and Buddhimanta Khan, he had sponsored everything. He had bought all sorts of gifts and sandalwood and betel nuts and so on and so forth to give in charity to all the guests that were coming. And it's given that Buddhimanta Khan, he had arranged so many gifts and so many different possessions that actually Nimai Pandit, he was given all these gifts to give in charity, and different persons, they would stand in line during the Adivas ceremony and they would take these gifts in charity. And some of these personalities who had come for the Adivas ceremony, they were brahmanas, but they got overcome by greed. And being overcome by greed, they would come once, get some gifts in charity, get sandalwood, betel nuts, this gift, that gift, then they would go. Then again they would stand in line, dress themselves differently, and again, for a second time, get in charity the same amount. Then again they will go back, dress in disguise, and again come for a third time. So in this way, Chaitanya Bhagavat explains that some of these brahmanas who had come as guests for the Adivas ceremony, for the marriage of Nimai Pandit, they became overcome by greed. And being overcome by greed, they were cheating and coming once, twice, and 3 times, and holding more and more gifts in charity. And naturally, Mahaprabhu, being the Supreme Lord, he could understand what was going on. And Mahaprabhu, out of compassion, to save the brahmanas from falling down even further, to save and protect the brahmanas from being overcome by greed, Mahaprabhu gave every person so much charity that they couldn't even hold it. He gave persons in charity like in excess amount. So then they wouldn't come and twice or 3 times in line to get more in charity. And it's given that there was so much charity given that people, they couldn't hold it in their hands, and there were gifts and things falling all over the floor of the marriage ceremony. And the things that were fallen all over the floor, the gifts and the different, can't remember the exact detail what was given, like sandalwood and betel nuts and so on and so forth. And there was so much given in charity, people couldn't hold it in their hands, and these excess gifts were just splattered all over the floor. And just by those excess gifts, just laid out all on the floor, there was enough to conduct another 5 marriage ceremonies. So we can just imagine how much, Mahaprabhu was giving in charity during his marriage ceremony. So all this was arranged again by Buddhimanta Khan. He arranged so much. And recently we're hearing in the CC classes about King Pratap Rudraja. Again, he was a great, being the king, he was such a wealthy personality. He had so much facilities, so many things under his control. And again, he dovetailed all those things in the service of Mahaprabhu. Like during the Ratha Yatra pastimes, in that section of Madhya Lila, we're hearing that during the Hera Panchami festival, King Pratap Rudraja, he tells his personal servants that now the Hera Panchami festival is coming, and Mahaprabhu is personally here this year. I want you to make arrangements for this festival to be bigger than any other previous year. This year has to be even more gorgeous and, be so amazing that everyone will be astonished by the size and the amazing arrangements of the festival. And not only that, I want whatever prasadam was given out during the Ratha Yatra, I want you to double the prasad for the Hera Panchami festival. So in this way, again, King Pratap Rudraja, he's using his resources, he's using his wealth, that possessions and power that he has, again, in Mahaprabhu's service. So Ghanshyam Prabhu was mentioning that this should be our mood also for every festival. Just like King Pratap Rudraja, his mood is, let this festival be even greater than previous years. Let this festival be so great that no one will forget this festival. Let whatever prasad we distribute during this festival be double of the previous festivals. So in the same way, our mood should be like the same during festivals. Okay, let this Janmashtami be so great that no one will forget this festival. Let this Janmashtami be even greater than previous year's Janmashtami. Or let this Gaur Purnima or Radhastami be so great. Let the prasadam be so amazing. Like that we should plan and be ambitious. And just like Maharaj Pratap Rudraja, he's instructing his ministers and his assistants to double the prasadam. Prabhupada, he gave the same instruction in regard to his Sankirtan devotees, his book distributors. It's mentioned by Prabhupada's disciples that this was Prabhupada's only instruction to the book distributors. Whenever book distributors, they would come and ask Prabhupada for instructions in regard to Sankirtan, the only instruction or the main instruction Prabhupada will give is just double it. Okay, you've distributed this many books, okay, next year double it. Okay, you've collected this much, double it. So that was the only instruction Prabhupada gave to book distributors, that whatever you distributed next year or next month, you try and double it or you try and increase. So this is the nature of Sankirtan, this is the nature of devotional service, of Raghunuga Bhakti, that a devotee, he is never satisfied with his devotional service and he always wants to do more and more for Krishna's pleasure. And we see that with King Pratap Rudraja, and we see Prabhupada inspiring his devotees to also push forward in Sankirtan in the same mood, to always increase the numbers, increase the books distributed, increase the prasadam distributed, the outreach, and so on and so forth. So like this we see with the example of King Pratap Rudraja, Buddhimanta Khan, how they're engaging their pompous nature, they're engaging their wealth, their facilities, whatever power and possession they have. They're dovetailing all of that, those inclinations, those assets in the service of Mahaprabhu. Another example we see of King Pratap Rudraja, when Mahaprabhu was traveling to Vrindavan, along the way, whichever town and village Mahaprabhu was passing through, King Pratap Rudraja arranged his ministers or his assistants that before Mahaprabhu he arrives at a particular suburb or town, I want you to build a brand new house, and not only build a brand new house and residence for Mahaprabhu and his assistants, but I want you to fill the house with enough food grains for 2-3 days and enough spices so Mahaprabhu can go stay in this beautiful house. His assistants, his devotees can cook prasad and there won't be any difficulties for Mahaprabhu. So this was to the extent, King Pratap Rudraja, he was using his resources. Imagine that happening today, like we're going out on Sankirtan, let's say we're going on traveling Sankirtan from Sydney to Brisbane, and the Premier of New South Wales arranges us, calls up Ghanshyam Prabhu, and the Premier of New South Wales tells Ghanshyam Prabhu, don't worry about your accommodation, don't worry, you don't have to book caravan parks, you don't have to book motels or hotels, in advance in your accommodation. I'll arrange for all your facilities. Just tell me which towns you're going to stop over. Whichever towns you're going to stop, okay, you're going to stop over Newcastle, Port Mocha, no problem. before you arrive in Newcastle, I'll build a brand new caravan for you. I'll build a brand new residence for you, and that caravan will have, all the fruits and veggies you need. That caravan will have all the bhoga spices. You don't have to do anything. You just come, stay in the caravan. Then you go to the next destination. In your next destination, don't worry again about booking accommodation. I'll arrange a brand new accommodation for you again. So this was, the level that the king, Pratap Ruda, he was planning, he was engaging his resources to serve Mahaprabhu. So again, we can take inspiration from all these devotees, how to engage whatever assets we have in Mahaprabhu's service. So that's with the thing of Vedic rituals, charity. We saw that with the example of Buddhimanta Khan, Maharaj Pratap Ruda. Then we have Brahma's mentioning austere penances. In one class last week, my Guru Maharaj was giving on Zoom. It was like a question and answer session. And one devotee, she asked my Guru Maharaj that, Maharaj, I was reading Bhagavad Gita and I came across this word penance. Krishna is talking about the importance of doing penance, the importance of doing austerities in spiritual life. So this devotee, she asked my Guru Maharaj, can you please elaborate a bit more about this aspect of penance or austerity that Krishna is talking about? What penance should we do? What austerities we should do? Because Krishna is saying penance is very important, austerity is very important. And what was my Guru Maharaj's response? My Guru Maharaj simply answered by saying, our penance or your penance is simply to chant Hare Krishna. That is your penance. You chant Hare Krishna, that is your austerity, that is your penance. And secondly, my Guru Maharaj said, firstly, you chant Hare Krishna, and secondly, you inspire or help others chant Hare Krishna. That is your penance. That is the penance of all of us. That is the austerity for all of us. And if we study the life of Prabhupada, study his instructions, his lectures, morning walks, Lilamrit, we'll see that that was the same mood of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, he didn't, like one pastime I was reading recently, Prabhupada, he was telling his devotees in India that whatever I've given you, there's enough austerities. I've already given you enough austerities. You don't have to take up more austerities. And Prabhupada, in this case, he was instructing his disciples that don't worry about Chaturmasya. You don't have to follow Chaturmasya. All of you devotees here in India, you're already following enough austerities. You're already waking up, chanting, distributing books, going out preaching, making life members. You're doing so much service for me. I've already given you enough austerities. You don't have to take up more austerities. Don't worry about Chaturmasya. So in this way, we see the same mood with Prabhupada, that, the process that Prabhupada has given us of chanting Hare Krishna, going out preaching, distributing books, Harinam, Sankirtan, outreach, there's enough austerities already involved in all of these activities. And Prabhupada, he doesn't want us to artificially take up more austerities and distract ourselves. Because if we distract ourselves by taking up more physical austerities, then that so-called austerity which we're taking up, it will distract us from the main activity of chanting Hare Krishna and inspiring others to chant Hare Krishna. So the definition of a servant means that he does what the master wants him to do. And what does our master want us to do? Mahaprabhu says, instructs all of his disciples, all of his followers, Yare deko tareko Krishna upades, amar agya guru hoy taro edesh. So Mahaprabhu is instructing, Bharatam bhumile hoy, manusha janma yar, janma satika kari parag upakara. So this is the instruction of our master, Mahaprabhu. What does our master want? Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, they want us to firstly make our life perfect, chant Hare Krishna, have good sadhana, and secondly go out and make others into devotees. Share this fortune of Krishna consciousness with others, make others into devotees. So this should be what our focus is, and this is our study. Our study is to wake up early in the morning, chant our rounds. Our study is to read Bhagavatam, and our study is to go out and make others into devotees. When we go out on book distribution, Sankirtan, we approach people and we get rejected by so many people. Most people we approach, they reject us. And only a certain percentage, they listen to us and they take books. So that's austerity, to get so many people say no or so many people ignore you and walk past you, that's austerity. So that is our austerity. And if we artificially take up more austerities, then what that does is it distracts us from the main activity or the main service our spiritual master has given, which is to do outreach, to do Sankirtan. If we take up certain fasting or vows or this austerity, that austerity, then that will take up some time and energy of us from preaching, from doing outreach, from doing a particular seva, which our spiritual master has done. So again, the first priority is always to follow the instruction of the Guru, to follow the instruction of the Master. And the Master is saying, you just simply follow the simple process of bhakti I've given you, and you simply share this with others. So that should be our main focus. And few examples coming to mind of Prabhupada putting aside artificial austerities. Like one time I was reading recently of how one devotee, he came for darshan, and he came into the room and he just sat on the floor without sitting on a mat or a cushion. And then Prabhupada immediately he told that devotee, what are you doing sitting on the floor just like that? Get a cushion and sit on the cushion. Don't you know if you don't sit on a cushion, if you don't sit on a mat properly, then you will get this, Prabhupada said, some illness starting with H. It was some big word, I can't remember. But Prabhupada, he instructed this devotee like that, sit on a cushion, sit on a mat. If you don't, you'll get this particular illness. It will be bad for your health. Another time, so Prabhupada, he was very practical. He wanted his devotees to eat nicely, live a healthy life, sleep properly, take care of their health, be strong. And this way, if devotees are strong mentally and physically, then they can go out and distribute a lot of books, do Harinam Sankirtan, preach, and so on and so forth. So Prabhupada, he didn't want his devotees to artificially take up unnecessary austerities. So in the same way, one time, Prabhupada was giving Bhagavatam class, and one devotee called Narayan, he walked into the temple room. And that time it was winter, so it was freezing cold. Everyone was wearing their shawls and covering themselves with beanies and so on and so forth. And this devotee, during freezing winter, he walks into a temple room, just wearing a thin shirt, just a t-shirt. He just walks in, and then Prabhupada immediately notices this devotee, even though it's freezing winter, he's just wearing a t-shirt. And Prabhupada, he mildly chastises this devotee by making fun of him in front of everyone else. What does Prabhupada say? When Prabhupada sees this devotee in winter coming into Bhagavatam class just with a t-shirt on, Prabhupada looks at him and says, Narayan, are you eating chicken? Like that Prabhupada asked him. And everyone is just shocked. Like, why is Prabhupada asking like that to this devotee? Narayan, are you eating chicken? And this devotee is also just astonished and he doesn't know what to say. No, answer me, Narayan. Are you eating chicken? You must be eating chicken. Are you eating chicken? And then this devotee says, no, Prabhupada, I'm not eating chicken. And Prabhupada says, no, you must be eating chicken. Otherwise, how is it you're just wearing a t-shirt like this in winter? This is how the meat eaters, they keep themselves warm. They eat a lot of chicken, they eat a lot of meat, and this way they're able to stay warm during winter. So you must also be eating chicken. Otherwise, how come in this freezing winter you're just wearing a t-shirt? Like this Prabhupada, he makes fun of this devotee in front of all the other devotees to instruct us, all of us, that we need to take care of our body, we need to take care of our health, because we need this body to do outreach, to do preaching, to do services for the Supreme Lord. If we don't take care of our health, this body is not ours, it's actually Krishna's possession. As Mahaprabhu himself instructed Sanatan Goswami. When Sanatan Goswami, he was planning to commit suicide by going under the wheels of the Rath cart of Lord Jagannath, Sanatan Goswami is thinking that, my body is full of all this, disease, and Mahaprabhu is embracing this dirty body. What is the use of my life? Better I just commit suicide. When Mahaprabhu, he understood this, he again chastised Sanatan Goswami mildly by telling him that, how can you give up this body? How can you sacrifice something which doesn't belong to you in the first place? Your body actually doesn't belong to you. Your body is my possession. Your body belongs to me. And how can you give away something which is not yours? This body belongs to me. How can you renounce someone else's possession? So in the same way, we should understand that these bodies that we have, it's actually all belong to Shri Radha Gopinath. Radha Gopinath, they're the owner of our bodies, and it's our duty as service to Shri Radha Gopinath to take care of our bodies. In this way, Prabhupada, with his practical example, he's instructing his disciples that it is our duty to take care of our physical bodies, to eat properly, sleep properly, do exercise, during the winter, cover ourselves properly, so on and so forth, and not take up artificial austerities. Another time during a morning walk, there was one devotee, he was running late for the morning walk, and again, it was winter time, early in the morning, and because he was running late, he didn't bring a shawl or a jumper or anything to cover himself. And he quickly came to join Prabhupada. And Prabhupada immediately, he noticed there's this devotee, early in the morning during winter, he doesn't have a shawl or he isn't covering himself with anything. And Prabhupada, he had 2 shawls, so 2 layers of shawls in himself. And Prabhupada personally, he himself, took one of his shawls off and gave to this devotee. And this devotee is saying, no, Prabhupada, this is your shawl. How can I take your shawl? You're my guru, you're my spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, no, it's okay. I have 2 shawls. I'll wear one, you take one. It's not good to go out in the cold like this. So in this way, Prabhupada personally, he gave one of his own shows in charity to his disciples to protect him from the cold. So in this way, Prabhupada, he was, by his practical example, Prabhupada is showing us that, we need to take care of our bodies, maintain our health, and not take up any more austerities. Prabhupada is saying that the process is given up, waking up early in the morning, that's austerity, to wake up for Mangalati, sitting in one place, chanting. These are all austerities Prabhupada has given. And Prabhupada is saying, with the program I've given all of you, boys and girls, there's enough austerities involved. You don't have to invent anything new, you just focus on what I'm telling you, and that is your austerity. And another time I was remembering, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He was explaining how when they were in Mayapur, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers or some other persons there, some Indian devotee or someone else, they were making fun of the devotees, saying that the American, European devotees of Srila Prabhupada of ISKCON, they don't know how to chant Hare Krishna properly. So they don't know how to recite Sanskrit properly. The Sanskrit pronunciation trouble, and they were making fun of devotees that they can't pronounce Sanskrit properly, These American devotees, European boys, they're not qualified, so on and so forth. And when the devotees, they told Prabhupada this, or this particular godbrother Prabhupada, they were telling Prabhupada like that. What was Prabhupada's response? Prabhupada responded by saying, yes, they can't chant Sanskrit properly. Yes, they might have this fault. They might have that fault. Yes, they might be coming from such sinful background. Yes, their conditioned nature is still there. They might have that fault, this fault, that fault. Nevertheless, despite all of their faults, Prabhupada said, they have one good quality. And what is that one good quality? Prabhupada said, they might not be able to chant Sanskrit properly. They might have that anatta, this anatta. They might have come from this degraded background. They might still have this conditioned nature. Despite all these anattas, all my disciples have one good quality, which is whatever I tell them to do, they do it. They are fully surrendered unto me. They have full faith in my words. Whatever I ask them to do, with full faith, they follow whatever I'm asking them to do. And then Prabhupada said, because of this one good quality, all their bad qualities or all their disqualifications are automatically eliminated. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was sharing his realization that in this instance, Prabhupada is explaining that if we just simply have this one good quality of full surrender unto the instructions of the spiritual master, or full faith and surrender to following and carrying out whatever the spiritual master says, Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that according to Prabhupada, this one good qualification of having full faith in the words of the Guru can outweigh all the other disqualifications one might have. One might not be able to wake up, or one might be overcome by anger, lust, greed. One might not be able to chant Sanskrit properly. One might not be able to sing properly. One might have a whole list of so many anarthas, so many disqualifications. Nevertheless, Prabhupada says, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he shares, despite all of one's disqualifications, if one just has one good qualification of being fully surrendered to the Guru, that one good qualification automatically eliminates, outweighs all of his disqualifications. So in this way, Prabhupada, he defended all of his disciples in Mayapur when his godbrothers or other devotees, they were criticizing his disciples. So again, we can focus on that, to following strictly what Prabhupada instructed, following strictly what authorities are doing. If we just simply follow strictly, just hold on tightly to the instructions of Prabhupada, that itself is our perfection. Just like during Guru Puja, we sing every day during Guru Puja these words by Narottam Das Thakur, that Shri Guru Charana Reti Aise Uttama Gati. So what does Narottam Das Thakur is saying? What is the Uttama Gati? What is the topmost destination? What is the topmost perfection? The topmost perfection is Shri Guru Charana Reti. The topmost perfection in life is having attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Having attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master means you follow whatever the spiritual master is saying. You be a sold-out servant of the spiritual master. So if any person, any devotee, if he's just a completely sold-out servant of his spiritual master, then his life is perfect. He will go back home, back to Godhead, despite whatever lackings he might have, whatever anathas he have. Just simply by his devotion to the Guru, he'll overcome whatever anathas he have. He will attain Krishna Prema and he'll go back. So this is another very nice little pastime of Srila Prabhupada, So that's with the penances. Another example I can think of is of this whole theme of offering whatever we have for Krishna's service. We see with when Krishna goes to Mathura, right? There are different persons. They offer different things in charity to Krishna, whatever they have in their possession. Like the person who's making Sudama, the florist. He's a florist. He gets all sorts of beautiful flowers. He makes flower garlands. Usually he does that for the king Kamsa, but this time he sees Krishna and Balaram. He gets mesmerized by the beauty, and out of love and affection for Gopinath, for Balaram, he collects the best looking flowers, most finest flowers, makes a beautiful garland and offers to Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna, he blesses the Sudama florist. Then Kubja, she comes, and what's her qualification, what's her occupation, is that she makes sandalwood paste and offers it to the king. Again, when she sees Krishna, that's what she has in her possession, and she offers that to Krishna. And she gives Krishna in charity the sandalwood paste she has. So in this way, different devotees, they offer whatever they have in possession to Krishna. So in the same way, in our movement, in our congregation, we have so many devotees with different skills and talents. Someone might have the assets of Lord Lakshmi, someone might have the assets of, cooking, being very creative, so on and so forth. So whatever assets we have, whatever abilities we have, talents we have, we just have to dovetail that for Krishna's pleasure, and Krishna will accept that as bhakti. And if we're doing it with the mood of pleasing Krishna, then that's considered as pure bhakti. On the other hand, we see in that pastime of Mathura, like the washerman, his qualification, he had a lot of beautiful fine clothes, and Krishna asked, can you give us some nice clothes so we can decorate ourselves? And the washerman immediately chastised Krishna and Balaram, how can you dare to ask for these clothes? These clothes belong to a king. Who do you think you are? How can I give to you like this? And Krishna, Radha Maharaj explains that when Krishna, he goes to Mathura, Krishna, he displays all the different fine arts of martial arts, Radha Maharaj explains. And Radha Maharaj says, this was the first original karate chop in the history. Before karate was invented, Krishna himself, he did the original karate chop. So when this washerman, he insults Krishna like that, Krishna, it's mentioned, just with his hand, somehow he just chops off his head. Again, it's inconceivable. How can someone just chop off someone's head just by, just doing like that? But again, Angani Yasya Sakalendra Vritti, Krishna, by any one of the parts of his bodies, he can do whatever he likes. So just with a karate chop, Krishna, he chops off the head of this washerman. And then Radha Maharaj explains, when Krishna was killing Kamsa, Krishna, he started displaying boxing. That's how Krishna killed Kamsa, right? He jumped up to the, the high area where Kamsa was seated with his ministers, grabbed Kamsa by the chest, by the hair, and then threw Kamsa down onto the arena, then jumped on Kamsa's chest, and then Krishna, he boxed Kamsa to death, just started punching him with his fist, and just with the blows of Krishna's fist, Krishna, he killed Kamsa. And also Krishna, he displayed the art of wrestling also, by wrestling with Chanura and Mustaka. So again, Radha Maharaj explains how when Krishna goes to Mathura, he displays all the wonderful arts of martial arts. So in this way we see how, as Prabhupada explained, whatever abilities we have, we just have to dovetail that for Krishna's pleasure. And lastly, one other thing comes to mind regarding austerity. In one lecture, Prabhupada was telling his disciples that in previous ages, the austerity for the previous ages was to do meditation. And Prabhupada said these great sages, rishis or kings, they would go to the forest and meditate, not just for a couple of years, decades, or 100 years, but for thousands of years. So how many years? Prabhupada says, in this particular lecture, he was telling his devotees that these great sages and kings, they would meditate in the forest for 60,000 years at a go. And then Prabhupada says, don't worry, in this age we don't have to do this by Mahaprabhu's mercy. And Prabhupada told his devotees that in this day and age, if you just go out on the streets and you do book distribution, Prabhupada says just a few days of distributing books is equal to 60,000 years of tapasya in the forest. And when Prabhupada said that, all the devotees say, Jai Haribol, Jai Prabhupada. So that's how amazingly easy Shri Shri Gaur Nitai have made the process of bhakti for us. So what was so difficult in previous ages, as Prabhupada is saying, what was, the benefit of doing 60,000 years of tapasya, Prabhupada is saying, we can get just by doing 3 days of book distribution, just by doing 3 days of Harinam Sankirtan. So in this way we can appreciate how magnanimous, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai are, how easy they made the process of bhakti for us. Okay, will this stop here? You have any comment or anything? Yes. Padayatra, okay. For karma yogis, they do particular acts and they have some desire to enjoy the activity, but they dovetail that for Krishna's pleasure also. So they give the results, like they give something in charity to Krishna and they also enjoy something for themselves. So they're also, you can say they're also directly connecting Krishna, but they still have that selfish desire for themselves. And by doing that over a period of time, they can actually, they don't have to go to Jnana Yoga. They can just go directly from Karma Yoga straight to Bhakti. So there's like another process where one can go directly from Karma to Bhakti. And we see that with our movement, right? So many devotees, they come. Initially, they might not be practicing Bhakti, like following all the rules, regulations, being initiated, so on and so forth. But they come, they work, and they give donations. They become a member of Gopinath Seva. They give Lakshmi in charity. And they have desires to enjoy separately, whatever they have. They have their own personal life, and then they have their devotional life, which they do on the weekend or once a month. But slowly, over a period of time, they get purified. And then one day we just see them as an initiated devotee, dedicating their lives fully to bhakti. So nowadays that's why we see that the Jnana Yoga Astanga is not really there. But traditionally in Vedic culture there's that slow process there. But in general, as Ghanshyam was saying, it's very rare to see someone slowly going through, because it takes many lifetimes. That's why in general we don't have any examples of someone, going from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Because it takes many lifetimes, slowly they progress. But in general, the process we're seeing nowadays is someone, maybe they might be a Karma Kandi, and then they somehow come to ISKCON temple, then they become Karma Yogis by offering the results of their works to Krishna. And then slowly, by association, they become Bhakti Yogis. So that's the general process we're seeing. So for Karma Yogis, we can say they're direct, because they're coming to temple, giving to Gopinath, they're taking darshan of Gopinath. So they're also directly connecting with Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. They have these material desires, but because of, again, as Prabhupada was saying, Krishna is giving them credit for giving some fruits, some sacrificing some fruits of the activities towards him. So Krishna will slowly elevate them. And just